All right, we'll say good morning. Let us begin with a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Beginning by thanking our sponsors, our TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Kislev, Semi and Malka Esterson for dedicating all the Shurim and Joshua this month in memory of their parents, Yitzchak Laib ben Aharon HaKohen, Sarah Rachel bas Baruch Avraham, Hinda bas Henech Efraim. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD TORAH, the Neshama will have an aliyah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah, and the family a nechama. We thank our week of learning sponsors, Paul and Kathy Pollack, for dedicating the shiurim this week in honor of the birth of a grandson to Rabbi Henoch Morris, the Rosh Kollel of Columbus Community Kollel, and his wife Chaya, born to their children Isaac and Esther Morris of Baltimore. Mazel tov. Good. Well, so with that, let us begin. So we have a lot to do today. Today's daf is daf Dalid, and we are picking up on Gimel Amud Beis 3. There is so much to talk about today. We'll have to exercise restraint a little bit. So I'll say, we are picking up Gimel Amud Beis 3b, and I guess we really left off by Ruchos Aruchos, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 lines up from the bottom. So I'll say, remember again, the Gemara was discussing the idea that there seemed to be a contradiction. On one hand, we said that Ruchos, wind, is never withheld. And then afterwards we said wind is withheld. So what's going on? A common everyday wind is never withheld. But ruach she'ena metzuya, stronger winds, are sometimes withheld. So the Gemara says, what do you need a ruach she'ena metzuya for? What do you need a stronger wind for? So ruach she'ena metzuya chazila beidari, because ultimately, again, interestingly, for ruach she'ena metzuya, stronger winds are very helpful for borer, for separating the wheat from the chaff, right? You'd go ahead and throw the wheat up in the air, and the wind does a lot of the separation process for you. But again, efshar ben afusa. The good news is, if there's not a ruach metzuya, you can accomplish the same thing through a sieve or a sifter. Tana, ha'avim varucho shnios lematar. So we'll say, we have another verse that says as follows, that clouds and wind are shnios lematar. That will say, shnios lematar means, Rashi says, kimat shemo ilos kimatar atzmo. Wind and cloud cover after rain is as beneficial as the rain itself. Right? So if it's windy or it's cloudy after it rains, it amplifies the positive impact of the rain. So the Gemara says, hey Chidami, what's the case? So Amar Ula Vitim Rabbi Yehuda, the Basra Mitra, so talking about after rain, that if it's windy or it's cloudy after it rains, ultimately, again, that amplifies the positive impact of the rain. Remember the mal, you see? So you tell me then that wind and clouds after rain is a good thing? V'aksiv, but the pasuk says, Yitin Hashem es matar artzecha avak v'afar. Yet the pasuk over here that the Gemara is quoting from the Tochacha, from Dvarim, Yitin Hashem es matar artzecha avak va'afar. Kodesh Baruch Hu will make your rain avak va'afar, which Rabbi refers to as follows. V'amra ula v'tim Rav Yehuda zeka de basar mitra. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says part of Tochacha is that after it rains, HaKodesh Baruch Hu will cause it to be windy. What happens when it's windy after it rains? It kicks up the dirt and causes the wet dirt to stick to the plants, which is not good for the plants. So how can you say that wind after rain is good? Lokasha hada asanecha hada asirazia. Everything depends on how it rains. Right? If halacha l'maisa, it rains softly, so soft rain doesn't kick up the dirt. So because of that, again, if it's windy afterwards, the wind is able to disperse the rain in the appropriate way. If it rains strongly, that kicks up the dirt, and then afterwards the wind comes along and causes the dirt to stick to the vegetation, which is not good. Because we'll say when it rains strongly, when there's a strong rain, it kicks up the dirt. When it's a soft, and therefore if the wind comes afterwards, the wind causes the dirt to stick to vegetation. But if it rains softly, it does not kick up the dirt. Rabbi Yehuda says, Zeka de basar mitra ki mitra. Rabbi Yehuda says that when it's windy after it rains, wind after rainfall is as beneficial as rainfall itself. Iva de basar mitra ki mitra. When it's cloudy after rainfall, that's also beneficial. Shimsha de basar mitra. When it's sunny after rainfall, kitrei mitri. That's as impactful as two rainfalls. So I'll say, I just want to point out, isn't it incredible all the things that happen in the world that we're totally oblivious to, but yet impact us, right? Whoever pays attention to what happens after it rains? Is it windy? Is it cloudy? Is it this? Is it that? Who pays attention? The Ribbon Shalom pays attention. And he pays attention to every single detail. And this is one of the miracles that happen around us all of the time. And the amount of divine choreography that occurs to make sure that our lives are good, to make sure that we have what we need, is absolutely and overwhelmingly mind-blowing. All of these details. So the Gemara says, so we'll say all of this stuff is good after a rainfall, right? So if it's cloudy, if it's windy, if it's sunny, so fantastic. So this is great. So what's not good, right? Tell me something that's not good. That's human nature, right? Tell me bad news, right? Tell me something that's not good. So Lemeute gilhi delayla v'shimsha debeni karchi. This is very interesting. To exclude, we'll say gilhi delayla means flashes of light at night. Flashes of light at night apparently is not a good thing. And shimsha debeni karchi. Shimsha debeni karchi, I will say, means light that comes out from between the clouds. If you take a look at Rashi says gili delayla, so that's not very helpful. V'yom shimsha debeni karchi shebena avim shnira b'makom echad ora u'b'makom echad me'unan kekereach sheyesh l'sar. So what happens? See, interestingly enough, what's detrimental? What's detrimental is when you have pockets of sunlight. You know, sometimes in the cloud cover, you have a little bit of sunlight here, a little bit of sunlight there. That's not helpful. So when the sun shines after the rainfall, helpful, right? Cloudy after the rainfall, that's helpful. Pockets of sunlight, a little bit of sunlight here, a little bit of sunlight there, that's not helpful. I will say, we'll speak about this theme because it's going to come up many times throughout the daf. The imagery of a little bit of sun here and a little bit of sun there highlights what? A lack of consistency. You see, if a person has a little bit of sun over here, a little bit of sun over there, a little bit of shining here, a little bit of shining there, a good moment here, a good moment there, are those moments meaningful? Absolutely. But where there's a lack of consistency, you see, if it's sunny or if it's cloudy, that's beneficial to the rain, right? When there's a consistent state. When it's kind of nishtahim nishtaher, right? It's a little bit sunny, it's a little bit cloudy. I'm on, I'm off, I'm here, I'm not here. So again, it's really unhelpful, the Gemara says. It's generally unhelpful. Rain, which represents the greatest form of bracha, which represents ruchnius. Ruchnius is only impactful if you try to maintain some level of consistency. Again, the consistency could be cloudy, the consistency could be rain, it could be sunny. It doesn't have to be perfect. But as long as it's consistent. But when it's a little sunny here and a little cloudy there, and a ray here and a ray there, it's just hard to get real traction in life. Your rain, your ruchnius, doesn't have the same impact when it's spotty. It only has a true impact when it's consistent. So the Gemara goes weiter. Snowfall on top of a mountain is as beneficial as 5 rains on the earth. Okay? Beautiful. Shnei as the pasuk says, quoting over here the pasuk from Eov, I remember when I was a young man, I used to be able to see the psukim quoted on the margin of the Gemara. Well, now, mamish. All right, it must be, yeah. So we'll say the point over here is there are 5 mentions of rain. It might be time. There are 5 mentions of glasses resistant, right? But there are 5 mentions of rain. Ultimately, again, in the pasuk, in the reference to mountains. So from here, you see that halacha lamaisa, rain on the mountain or snow on the mountaintop is as beneficial as 5 rains on the earth. So the Gemara goes weiter. Vamarava tilgulaturi machra. So snow on the mountaintop, machra razil ilani, heavy rains for the trees, machra necha lepiri, soft rains for the fruit. I will say again, isn't this incredible? That the Ribbon Shalom has to think, he has to choreograph everything that, right? The mountains need snow. The trees need heavy rain. The fruit needs soft rain. And we haven't even gotten to people yet, right? Everything needs its own thing. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu does it. Top of Dalet, or Pila, afilu lipartzida de tusikala mahanya. and orpila. We'll define what orpila means. Orpila, fine, I'll tell you now. Rashi says over here, gishamim dakim. Orpila means even softer rain. Soft rain. Soft rain works, afilu lepartida de tusekala. Even for a seed that is underneath a clod of earth. Look at Rashi. Afilu lepartida de tusekala hagarin shetachas gusha shel karka. So we'll say orpila, which is this, we'll see, is the softest kind of rain that works to penetrate, to even get to a seed that is buried underneath a clod of earth. My orpila, the Gemara says, what does the word orpila mean? Uru pili. So we'll say uru means ultimately, again, awaken. Pili means cracks. What it means is that if you have a seed that's buried underneath a clod of earth, the soft rain is able to go ahead and penetrate the earth and get into the cracks of the seed and cause it to sprout. They both say, isn't this absolutely incredible? So there's heavy rains to go ahead and take care of the trees. There's softer rains to take care of vegetation. And what gets to the seed that's buried underneath the clod of earth? What gets to it? The softest of rains, or pila. They both say, what an incredible Musar Haskell. Because sometimes, if you want to get through to someone, and you feel that person is very obstructed, especially in the world of Ruchnius, person is very obstructed, and maybe their little seed of Ruchnius is buried underneath a clod of earth. It does not work to hit people over the head. What works is soft rain. Soft rain. Sometimes the softest words penetrate deepest. We know this again in chinuch of our children, we know it in marriage, and we know it in life. Harsh words usually never affect change, or they affect change. They often affect an opposite kind of change. But if you want to impact that seed that is buried beneath the clod of earth, whether you want to impact someone in a ruchni level, you want to impact someone in a spiritual level, soft, orpila. Words of orpila words, soft words, penetrates the deepest. It's incredible. V'amarava. We're going to change this to Amud Yomi, by the way, because I think we would cover a lot more ground, and Mirza Hashem spend a lot more time, maybe 14 years, and no one's going anywhere anyway. So Gemara says, Amarava. Rava says, he's just incredible. Taanis, by the way, as you're going to see, is like the most incredible Masechta. V'amarava. Haitzur mirabanan, dami lepartzida de tusekala. A Talmud Chacham is like a seed buried underneath the clod of earth. Why? Navat. Once he begins to sprout, he begins to sprout. In other words, I will say, here's what's interesting apparently about that seed. Even though it takes soft waters to penetrate, to get to the seed, once the seed begins to sprout, no stopping it. It grows. So a Talmud Chacham is like this seed. How so? Rashi says, Kevan Navat, Shamas Chilabatz Beitz V'Lalos Ola Lamala, Kach Talmud Chacham, Kevan Shiyatza Shmo, Holech V'Gad Lamala. Same as the Talmud Chacham. Once his name begins to spread, there's no stopping his growth. Such a beautiful metaphor. Just like the seed, all it needs is that little bit of water to get to it. And once it begins to grow, no stopping it. So to the Talmud Chacham, once his name gets out, once he begins to grow, again, there's a dynamic that takes hold. Vamarava. So I'll say, here we go. Haitzur mirabanan durasach. If a Talmud Chacham gets angry, we'll say, look familiar? If it doesn't, it's because you weren't here at 5:45. I just want to point that out. Good. Right? Good. You know who you are. So we'll say, so listen to this. Talmud Chacham who goes ahead and gets angry. Mamish, we learned this by Rab Tzaddik this morning. Right? Incredible. If a Talmud Chacham gets angry, what's causing that anger? It's the Torah that's causing anger. We'll say, now we understand what that means. What does that mean? You're blaming it on Torah? When a person learns Torah, they become more passionate about things. So when a Talmud Chacham gets angry, that anger is from the Torah inside of him. Now again, the anger may be, as we saw in Rab Tzaddik, the anger may be a misuse of that passion. Remember, again, the Gemara is not necessarily justifying the anger per se, but Lamaisa, again, understand where that's coming from. That passion is a manifestation of the incredible wellspring of spirituality he possesses. Shenemar haloko dvarika eish nu'um Hashem, because again the pasuk says in Yirmiyahu, haloko, my words are like a fire. The words of Torah are mamish like fire. Vam Ravashi, and I both say this is actually incredible Gemara. Kol Talmud Chacham she'eno kasha ke'eish, she'eno kasha ke'barzel. Sorry, any Talmud Chacham that is not as strong as iron. Eino Talmud Chacham. It's not a Talmud Chacham. But say Rashi says barzel kapdonim v'kashim kebarzel. Rabbi say this is incredible. A Talmud Chacham has to be tough as steel. So interesting. It's tough as steel. Shene'emar ukepate shifutzatz sela, like a hammer that crushes rock. Amrli Rabbi Abel Ravashi Asan Nehasa Masnisala. Anu Mehacha Masnila. You learn from there. We learn from here. T'chsev Eretz Asher Avaneha Barzel. Eretz Yisrael is a land whose stones are like iron. Al Tikri Avaneha. Don't read it as stones. Ella Boneha. Rather read it as builders. Both say Talmud Chacham must be tough as iron. Kasha kebarzel. They both say, so what is it? It's interesting. What does that mean? So I think it's a very simple pshat. We'll say if a person is going to be a Talmud Chacham, and assuming a person is not going to be the Talmud Chacham that is just a reclusive type of Talmud Chacham, just kind of living by himself, learning by himself. But remember again, when Chazal speak about a Talmud Chacham, they're also referring to someone who's involved in community, someone's taking a leadership position. So that, you know what the Gemara is saying? The key requisite for being a Talmud Chacham leader is thick skin. Thick skin. Because if you don't have thick skin, then ultimately, again, taking a position of communal leadership is virtually impossible. Why? I have to say why, right? Why? Because Jews are difficult, and people are mean, and people say things, and people do things. Often they don't even realize what it is that they're saying and that they're doing. If the Talmud Chacham is not kasha kibarzel, if he's not as strong as iron, then ultimately, again, his responsibilities will break him. Zohi derech hachayim. So the Gemara goes right there. Ravina, listen to the qualification. Ravina says, Afilu hachi mi baile leinish lemelef nafshe benichusa. Ravina says, but still, a person has to go ahead. It's interesting. Lemelef nafshe benichusa. A person has to conduct himself in a calm and mild manner. See, I will say, here's the interesting other side. Sometimes in the development of a thick skin, which is truthfully necessary for doing almost anything in life, you develop like a little bit of a coarseness, or you develop a little bit of a gruffness. So the job of the Talmud Chacham, and the truth is the job of every person, is to develop a thick skin, but at the same time to still be a kind and soft-spoken person. So be the thick skin, right? Be the thick skin. You can't be the kind of person who what people say or what people do is going to hurt you and bring you down. You have to figure out a way to be able to take it and move on. Take it, compartmentalize it, and just simply move on. But don't let that turn you into a coarse, gruff, or indifferent person. So I'll say, isn't this the almost not impossible, difficult combination in life? Develop the thick skin, but still be a soft person, right? Develop the thick skin so that what happens around you doesn't derail you, but maintain the sensitivity that allows you to be a feeling, empathic, and compassionate person. It's so incredible. Shneimar vaser kas milibecha. As Shlomo HaMelech says, remove the anger from your heart. So because we also we know that sometimes developing a thick skin also causes you to become jaded and cynical towards other individuals. But the problem is that changes me as a person. Develop the thick skin, but still maintain the personalistic softness. Incredible. It's just incredible Gemara. Just incredible. Shlosha shalu shelo kehogen. There are three people who asked that Kadosh Baruch Hu, who made a request, but it was an inappropriate request from Hashem. The Shnaim heshivu kehogen. Two of them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered them appropriately, or meaning Kohen answered them appropriately. Li'echad heshivu shel Kohen. One he answered inappropriately. Right? So what does this mean? Ve'eluhein, Eliezer Eved Avram, Eliezer, the servant of Avraham Avinu, Shaul ben Kish, who's King Shaul, the first king over Am Yisrael, the Yiftach Hagiladi. And Yiftach was one of the Shoftim. So what happens? We'll say, what are the stories? Here we go. Eliezer Eved Avram. So Eliezer, the servant of Avram, what did he do that was inappropriate? T'chsev, v'haya na'ara asher omar eleh hatina kadech. So I both say. So remember again, Parshas Chayei, Eliezer devises a test, and he says, I'm going to go over to a girl, I'm going to ask her for a drink. And whichever girl gives me a drink, she is the girl who you have chosen for Yitzchak. Yochal afilu chigeres, afilu suma. What happens if she was crippled? What happens if she was blind? So in other words, how do you devise a test like that? In other words, Eliezer made it all about the chesed. What happens if there were other challenges or other issues? How do you know that that's the girl for Yitzchak? Yet, Shabbos, I'll point out something very interesting. Tosfos says, but 1 second. Even if there was a problem, Eliezer would have seen. In other words, that when he asked the girl for a drink, ultimately, again, he could see, is she crippled? Is she blind? Are there other challenges associated? So we'll say, if you take a look at Tosis says, you see that Tosis, Yachal afilu chigaris asuma right across. So we'll say, if you take a look at the last couple of lines, V'yesh lomer dahachi pirusho, Yachal afilu chigaris v'afilu suma, Yachal afilu chigaris, sheyiyeh la afilu regel shal eitz, v'hu lo yehei roeh, o suma. So we'll say, in other words, Eliezer was hinging this all on this one interaction. I'm going to ask her for a drink, and if she gives me something to drink, then ultimately, again, she's the girl. Well, maybe he's saying, well, maybe she was crippled, right? Maybe she was crippled. And you wouldn't be able to see it. Maybe she had a wooden prosthetic, right? Regel shal eitz. Or maybe, or suma, kigon sheyesh la einayim yafim. Or maybe she had beautiful eyes, ve'ena roa klal, but she could not see anything out of them. Which was the only reason I wanted to show you that Tosas is because that phrase to me was so profound. Yesh la einayim yafim ve'ena roas klal. Sometimes you could have the most beautiful eyes. You could even have the best vision, but you don't see anything in life. What an incredible, incredible phrase. Most beautiful eyes, but you can't see a thing. Rabbi Nachman says the reason we cover our eyes by Kriyas Shema is because sometimes in order to see life for what it really is, you have to close your eyes. You have to stop looking. We think we see things for what they are. We think we see the world for what it is. We think we see others for who they are. We think we see ourselves, but often we don't see the truth. I don't see the real me. I don't see the real you. I don't see the real HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because sometimes these eyes, they're just a little bit skewed for a variety of reasons. So sometimes you have the most beautiful eyes, but they don't really see. So sometimes in order to really see life for what it is, you have to close your eyes. Okay, in any event. So the point over here is that Eliezer, the Gemara said, Eliezer, this was not a good idea. Right? Eliezer, this was not the appropriate way to approach this. To make everything about, is she going to give me a drink or not, without looking at the whole person. So the Gemara says, Heshivu k'hogin, yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered Eliezer appropriately, v'nizdamna lo Rivka. And ultimately, again, Rivka Imenu was the girl that came along. So even though, again, it's interesting, Chazal feel that Eliezer did not approach this correctly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu nevertheless answered his tefillos. Okay? Shaul ben Kish. What happened to Shaul? D'chsiv. V'aya ish asher yakenu. Yashrenu hamelech osher. Osher gadol ve'ezbito yitein lo. Both say. This is when Goliath, the Philistine, the Plishti, was threatening the Jewish people. Right? Shaul is out of options. He says, whoever is the guy who's going to go ahead and kill this Plishti, kill Goliath, I'm going to give him money. Fine. But Rabbi say, what else did he promise? His daughter, Yachol, afilu eved, afilu mamzer, right? Maybe the guy is going to be an eved, be a mamzer. Both say, when they say mamzer, it's not talking about how father-in-laws feel about their sons-in-law, right? But it means, again, what it means, again, is maybe there's mamish, a real issue, that halachically the guy is going to be unfit, right? So the Gemara says, Heshivu kahogen, v'nezdamin lo David. So once again, the Gemara says, what Shaul did, the way he framed it, it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu nevertheless went ahead and gave him David. Yiftach Hagiladi. What happened to Yiftach? So we'll say, again, Yiftach goes out to war, and what does he promise? He says, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you allow me to come back, V'haya hayotzi asher yotza midalsi beisi. Yiftach says, when I come back, whatever comes first out of my door, whatever comes out of my doorway first, I will offer up as a carbon to you. Yochal afilu davar tameh. So ultimately, again, what happens if a non-kosher animal would have come out first? HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not answer Yiftach in a good way. And who comes out first? Nizdamnilo bito. His daughter, right? Yiftach's daughter walks out of the house first. But there's a whole discussion exactly about what happened to Yiftach's daughter. But Lamaisa, she pretty much lived out the rest of her life in solitude. I mean, she friends with her, but she never married, right? She never, the way Yiftach ultimately approached her was, she was kind of like Makudash as a carbon. And so we'll say, so again, so I just want to point out over here, so therefore, 3 instances of people who quote unquote asked inappropriately, 2 were answered appropriately, 1 was not answered appropriately, right? So Eliezer, Shaul, inappropriate ask, appropriate answer. Yiftach, inappropriate, ask, inappropriate, answer. So we'll say, so it's interesting, wherein lies the distinction between these three cases. So what's interesting to note is as follows. Eliezer and Shaul, their asks were about the klal, right? Eliezer is trying to go ahead and find a wife for Yitzchak, future of the matriarchal line. Shaul is trying to go ahead and secure a win for Klal Yisrael. So Yiftach, interestingly enough, was a totally personal thing, right? This was his offering that he was going to give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what you begin to see is something absolutely amazing. When you do things for the Klal, when you do things for the collective, when you do things for Am Yisrael, there's a certain Shmir Yisera, there's a certain extra added measure of divine providence. Versus the things that are kind of for us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects us to exhibit chachma, to exhibit wisdom. If I exhibit wisdom, good. If I don't exhibit wisdom, sometimes I have to live with the reality of my mistakes. But the truth is, there's a deeper dynamic by Yiftach. Here we go. The Gemara says, this is what the Navi said to Klal Yisrael. The Gemara here quotes the pasuk from Yirmiyahu: "Hatsari ein begilad, imrofe ein sham." So we'll say literally it means tsari is a balm, a medicinal balm. Is there no medicinal balm in Gilad? Is there no doctor? Uksiv asher lo tzivisi velo dibarti velo alsa alibi. And furthermore, we'll say we'll see what this. Well, actually take a look before we go on. Take a look at Rashi. V'haynu de amar lehu navi. Medalgi b'krava amar hatsari in begilad. Hatsari in begilad. Pinchas hayasham. Both say this outside. You see, what should have happened in the story of Yiftach was as follows. Yiftach made a neder. His neder was, whatever walks out of my house first, I'm going to offer up to God. What walks out of his house first? Or who walks out of his house first? His daughter. What should have happened then? He should have gone to the Navi. The Navi was Pinchas. And he should have been Shoel al Nidro. They both say, this happens by Nidarim. People say things that they didn't realize were going to have intended consequences. There's the ability to be released from your Neder if you go to a Talmud Chacham or you go to a Beis Din. So Yiftach had an answer to his problem. All he needed to go was to go to the Navi Pinchas, and Pinchas could have released him from his Neder. But he did not go to Pinchas. Why did he go to Pinchas? Because Yiftach reasoned, I'm the shofet, the Navi should come to me. So because Yiftach refused to humble himself and go to the Navi, ultimately, again, he is not released from his vow. Now, again, whether or not his vow is even binding on his daughter is a separate discussion. But Lamaisa, he thought it was binding. There was a way to remedy this situation, but he refuses to go to Pinchas. And that's what the Gemara is quoting this pasuk. Is there no balm? Is there no medicine in Gilad? Is there no doctor? There's a doctor. There's a way to heal the situation. Go to Pinchas. So the truth is, the Medrash says Yiftach didn't want to go to Pinchas. Pinchas didn't want to go to Yiftach. So we'll say, isn't this incredible? You see, the Gemara is framing Yiftach as a situation of shalo kahogen. He made an inappropriate ask. In other words, his neder was inappropriate, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered him inappropriately. So we'll say, isn't it incredible that even in this case there was a solution? But the problem over here was not a lack of solution. The problem over here was a lack of humility. How many times are we unwilling to find proper solutions simply because we are unwilling to go ahead and humble ourselves? You know, we'll say, the Sfasema says this idea. He says that we spoke about this before. He says life is often a choice between being right and being happy. He said the amazing part is, you would be surprised how often people choose being right over being happy. So Yiftach chose being right. I'm the shofet. I'm not going to Pinchas. He chose being right over saving his daughter. Incredible. It sounds crazy, but it's maisim b'chol yom that people choose being right, or people choose arrogance over humility. They choose being right ultimately over being happy. So it's incredible. There was a solution over here also. There's always a solution. Not always, but here, there was a solution. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give it to Yiftach, but Yiftach had the ability to seize it on his own had he chosen. Such a tragic story. So the Gemara quotes over here, Uksiv asher lo tzivisi, v'lo dibarti, v'lo alsa alibi. What does this mean? I didn't command, I never spoke it out, and it never occurred to me. Asher lo tzivisi, I never commanded it. Zebeno shal Mesha melech Moav. Shneimar, vayikach es beno habachar shemiloch tachtov vayaleo ola. Shabbos say, Mesha, the king of Moab, decided to offer a sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He wanted to serve God. How did he serve God? He offered up his heir. He offered up his firstborn son. He thought this was like godless. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I never asked for a sacrifice like that. Velo dibarti, ze yiftach. Yiftach, I never wanted you to kiviyachol offer up your daughter. I don't want that. I don't want those kind of karbanos. V'lo ol salibi, and it never occurred in my heart, ze Yitzchak ben Avraham. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Baruch Hu says, Avraham, I told you to sacrifice your son, but just want you to know I never had intentions of having you follow through on that. Chadash Baruch Hu ultimately, again, is always happen to bring karbanos, but never these kinds of karbanos. Amar Rabbi Rachya, Af Knesset, so will say, an incredible Yisur. Also will say, this helps us frame in our own tefillos to recognize that sometimes the things we see, often we think that whatever we ask for is appropriate for us. Sometimes it's not. Now, we often don't know, right? That's why I ask for something, I think it's good for me. That's why, we'll say in tefillah, a person always has to say, whatever you're davening for, we all daven for things, to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm asking for this, if it's right. If it's right. Because tefillah always has to be approached with a certain level of humility. I think I know the things that I need or that I should have or that I'm asking for, but sometimes the things that I think I need are not really the things that I need. You have examples over here of people who daven for things and do things that they thought were right, but the Gemara says, that wasn't really the right approach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came through for them in at least two of the three cases. But Lamaisik is so important that as we approach tefillah is approached with a humility. I'm asking you for this. I think it's good for me, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ultimately, I defer to your divine wisdom. On Rabbi Yachya, Af Knesset Yisrael Shalom Kiloko again. Klal Yisrael also asked in an inappropriate way. Again, we'll say Shalom Kiloko just means also they asked in a non-optimal fashion. V'Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yeshiva Kogen. HaKadosh Baruch Hu went ahead and answered them appropriately. How so? This is beautiful. Shneimar v'neida. The Gemara quotes the pasuk from Hosea. V'neida nirdefa ladas es Hashem kashachar nachal motzo v'yavo kigesh l'gmash. So let's listen to this. So Klal Yisrael says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we'd like to know you like the earth knows the rain. Like the earth knows the rain. Such a beautiful way. So beautiful. Except here's the problem. Here's the problem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Biti. HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us his daughter. His daughter. Biti. At sho'eles davar shepamim mispakesh shepamim eno mispakesh. Here's the problem, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want me like the earth wants the rain. Does the earth always want the rain? No. Sometimes the rain is good for the earth. Sometimes the rain is not good for the earth. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to be for you like something that is always needed. You're asking me that I should be for you like the rain is for the earth. Problem is sometimes the earth needs rain, sometimes the earth doesn't need the rain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll be for you like the dew. Right? Dew is always necessary. We'll say. So which leads the question, so why does Klal Yisrael ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be like the rain? Right? We're smart, because we'll say deep down, this is an incredible insight. See, deep down, this goes back to what we said before, what's our greatest challenge in life? Our greatest challenge in Ruchnius is commitment. That's really we have commitment issues in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I love you, but I think we should see other people, right? I love you, but I'm not ready to settle down. I have commitment issues. So deep down, when I ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want our relationship to be like the rain. There's a piece of me that says, God, there are days I'm just kind of not going to be into it all that much. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I love you, but if you want a relationship, you got to be all in. Got to be all in. All in doesn't mean being perfect. Right? All in doesn't mean I'm firing on all cylinders every single day, but you can't see other people. Right? You can't be like the rain. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't like it. You have to be like the dew. Right? Our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't require perfection, but it requires absolute and unequivocal commitment. Va'od, shalosh shelo kahogen. Klal Yisrael asked another request that wasn't framed totally in the right way. So what happened? Amar l'fan Rebbeinu Shalom, simani kichosim al libeich, kichosim al zroeich. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, make me like a chosim, like a seal, on your heart and on your arms. Amrli HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Biti, at sho'eles davar shepamim nira pamim eino nira. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, my daughter, you're asking for something that is sometimes seen, sometimes not seen. In other words, something you wear on your heart is often covered by clothing, or even on your arm is often covered by clothing. Ani, so the Gemara says, pamim eino nira, aval ani, es alach davar shnira the olam shneimar, hein al kapayim chakosik. So we'll say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will be for you like something that is always seen. I will inscribe you or seal you on my palms. Right? The palms are always exposed. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will wear my relationship with you in a public way. Once again, Klal Yisrael says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seal us on your heart, seal us on your arm. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll do even better. Because the heart and the arm is often covered. People won't always know the unique relationship I have with you. I'll wear my relationship with you on my palms. Right? So that my love for you, my commitment to you, my connection with you will always be public and apparent. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Back to rain. Ein sholem hagishamim. So remember again, the Mishnah said, we only ask for rain samuch legishamim, next to the time for rain. Savruha, sheila v'askara chadamilsi. So we'll say, the Havamina in the Mishnah is that sheila and askara, we spoke of this in the Mishnah, is that sheila, asking for rain, and mentioning for rain are the same things. Now, I will say, we already showed that that's not the case. Mantana, Amarava, Rabbi Yeshua, this is Rabbi Yeshua, Dara Mishas Hanachaso. So we'll say Rabbi Yeshua who would say that you don't begin Mashiva Ruach Morid Ageshem until Shmini Atzeres, might also say that that's the time you begin to request rain as well. Amarle Abaye said, Afilu Tim Rabbi Eliezer, Sheila L'chod Vaskar L'chod. No, it can even reflect if you're Rabbi Eliezer, because remember again, how do we come out in the Mishnah? We come out that Sheila, request for rain, which is the same Talumata Livracha, and Haskara, mentioning of rain, which is what? Mashivaruach Morid Ageshem. Those are two different things. Vikada'amir, an alternate version of this. Lema. Good. Lema. Rabbi Yeshua, Tamar Mishas Hanachaso. Others say it's Rabbi Yeshua. Again, the alternate version of this, it's Rabbi Yeshua who says that we don't begin Mashivaruach Morid Ageshem until day 8. So he would also hold that you begin Mashivaruach day 8, and you also begin to ask for rain day 8. No, Sheila L'chod V'askar L'chod. So we'll say, all the Gemara is going through is the Havamim. The Havamim in the Mishnah is that the request, Sheila and Haskara are the same thing. Kamash Malan, they're two different things, which already we've established much earlier on. Sheila, which is the petitional request, comes later, we'll discuss when. Haskara, the remembrance, Mashirach Omer Agashim, could come even earlier. Weiter. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Overlefnei Ateva. So we'll say, remember again, the end of the Mishnah ends with Rabbi Yehuda. And Rabbi Yehuda says, when do you begin to recite Mashiv Haruach Umorid Agashem? When? So ultimately, again, he says, Rabbi Yehuda's shita was, however, Lefnei Ateva B'Yamtiv, the Baal Musaf on Shmini Atzeres says Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem. That's who begins, but the Baal Shachris does not say it. And on Pesach, the Baal Shachris says it, the Baal Musaf does not say it. So says the Gemara or Minhu, Ad Masai Sholan Hagishamim, until when do we request rain? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ad Shiavar Pesach. Rabbi Yehuda says until Pesach is over. Rabbi Meir Omer, Ad Shiavar Nisan. Rabbi Meir says no, we ask for rain until when? Until Nisan is over. Now, boss, remember again, this is Sheila. Sheila refers to what? The same Talumat Livracha. So the Gemara says, what's going on over here? So what's that? This contradicts the Mishnah, right? Because Rabbi Yehuda said you stop by Musaf on first day of Pesach. So the Gemara says, Rav Chisda lo kashya kan lishol kan lahaskir. No. Two different things. Our Mishnah is talking about Haskara. Mashivarach Amarid Ageshem. This is referring over here to Sheila, to the same Talmud Livracha, to which the Gemara says, kan lishol kan mishal shol. I'm sorry, lo kashya kan lishol kan lahaskir. Mishal shol va'azil. So I will say, does that make so? Therefore, again, the Gemara says it could very well be that we'll continue to ask even after we stop saying Mashiv Baruch Amar Agashem. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Lahaske b'yom tavarishon pasik. So the Gemara says, Mishal v'shal va'azil. Lahaske b'yom tavarishon pasik. Amar Ula hadrav chista kashya kechometz l'shinayim u'ka'ashan la'inayim. So I'll say it's actually very strong. So Ula says this statement of Rav Chisda is literally again like vinegar to the teeth and like smoke to the eyes, which means he disagrees. So again, because what Rav Chisda is highlighting over here is something very interesting. Rav Chisda is floating an idea that it's possible that you'll stop saying Mashiv Baruch Umorid Agashem, but what? You'll still continue to say what? The same Talumat Livracha, which makes no sense. Uma b'makom she'eno shoel maskir. Shabbos say, what we've established in our Mishnah is that you begin to mention right, rain, before you begin to ask for rain. And we've justified that by saying you can make mention of rain before asking, because the truth is mention of rain, technically you can do the entire year. So mentioning of rain precedes the actual petitional request. So doesn't it make sense that as long as you're asking for rain, that you would continue to mention Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem? Rather, Ula says at the end of the day, there are just two Tanoim according to Rabbi Yehuda. Look at Rashi. Trei Tanoi. Chad Amar Ad Sheyavor HaPesach Sholin Kol Shekin Shemaskirin. V'chad Amar She'ila Ad HaPesach V'askara Sheyach LaHasker B'Yom Tov Masker B'Yom Tov Harishon Shel Pesach. So both say, ultimately again, it's Machlokes Tanoim. It's Machlokes Tanoim. Do you stop Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem? And by extension, the same Talmud Livracha by the first day of Pesach. Anyway, first day of Pesach, you're not saying same Talmud Livracha. Do you stop it at the first day of Pesach? Or at the end of the day, do you go ahead and continue through Pesach? That's the Shaila. That's Machlokes. Rabbi Yosef says, Ma'at Sheyavor Pesach. What does it mean until Pesach is over? Ad Sheyavor Pesach. Ad Sheyavor Shliach Tzibor Rishon Hayored B'Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach. Or obviously, Ad Sheyavor Pesach means until ultimately, again, the first chazan of Pesach, which means the Baal Shacharis of the first day of Pesach finishes. Okay, so we just have a fundamental machlokes. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to link the two, right? So we're assuming that wherever Mashiv Baruch Umir Geshem ends, the same Talumat Livracha will end as well. Now remember, you won't know this, but I'll mention it. There obviously is no V'sein Talumat Livracha on Yom Tov itself anyway. Now there is V'sein Talumat Livracha when? Technically Chalamayid. So this will be the nafkamina. Do we end Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem on the first day of Pesach, or do we end it after Pesach? The nafkamina will be what? The nafkamina is how long do you say V'sein Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem? But also on Chalamayid Pesach, do you include the same tal umat or livracha in Shemona Esrei or not? This is the machlokes. So from the Abaye says, 1 second. She'ila b'yom tov mi'ika. 1 second, but there's no request for rain. There's no the same tal umat or livracha on Yom Tov anyway. So what are we talking about? Amar in Shal Targman. He says, yes, there is a she'ila. Where does she'ila come up? By the Torgman. I both say this is fascinating. Look at Rashi. Amar in Sheila the Torgaman, Bidrasha Shehu Doresh Omer Berchas Sheila Levada. Shabbos say this is fascinating. Sometimes apparently in the drasha of the Torgaman, he would go ahead and just make mention of rain. We need rain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us rain. He would say this as part of his drasha, which is fascinating. But does the Torgaman ever ask something that ultimately, again, the tzibor doesn't? In other words, by Pesach time, halacha l'maisa, again, by Pesach time, ultimately, the request for rain has ended. Rather, I will say, Ula's approach makes more sense, that there's just a machlokes. There's just a fundamental machlokes as to when we are ending over here. Are we stopping everything at the onset of Pesach, or ultimately, again, are we stopping everything at the conclusion of Pesach? Rabba Amar, my Achiyavor Pesach. What does it mean until Pesach is over? It doesn't mean until Pesach is over. Rather, Achiyavor Zman Shchitas Pesach. What it means is up until the Zman Shchita, which means that the last time we're going to go ahead and say Mashiv Baruch Amar Dageshem, and the same Talamat Livracha is when? Erev Pesach. Utchilaso kein sofo, and again, it's bookends. Matchilaso maskir afapi she'ina shoel, and I will say ultimately again, just like at the beginning, we say Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem without the same Talmud Livracha. Because remember again, you're beginning Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem when? When are you beginning it? Shmini Atzeres. And what are you not saying on Shmini Atzeres? The same Talmud Livracha. So just like when I begin it with Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem without the same Talmud Livracha. Kein sofo. So too at the end. So we'll say at the end, because when's the last Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem? When's the last one? First day Pesach by Shachris. But when do I end? When do I conclude the same Talmud Livracha? When's the last the same Talmud Livracha? When? Mincha Erev Pesach. So this is the bookends. Just like I begin Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem, ultimately again, without the same Talmud Livracha on Shmini Atzeres. So too, I'll conclude with the last Mashiv Baruch Amar Dagashem on the first day Pesach, but I'll conclude with the same Talmud Livracha 1 day earlier. Amar le Abaye, so Abaye says, Bishlama tchilas amaskir haskar namaritzui she'elehi. Ela sofo my research. We'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up with Amrli Abaye and Mirza Hashem. Actually, let's just finish Amrli Abaye. Bishlama tchilas amaskir haskar namaritzui she'elehi. So we'll say Abaye says, I understand to begin Mashiv Baruch Mori Dagashem without the same Talmud Baruch. I can understand that because the Haskara is the beginning of the petitional request, even though it's not the actual petitional request. Ela sofo my ritzui she'ela ika. Ultimately, what I will say, it doesn't make sense after you stopped the same Talmud Livracha, the actual petitional request. It doesn't make sense to continue with Mashiv Ruach Umorid Agashem. Ella mechavarta kedula. Rather, it makes sense to go back, like we said before, like Ula said, namely that it is a machlokes in the sheet of Rabbi Huda. Rabbi say, now we'll stop over here. We'll pick up at the halacha lemaisa of this, namely when do we stop the recitation of the same Talmud Livracha as well as Mashiv Ruach Umorid Agashem, to be continued tomorrow.